And welcome back to the Hot Lap. We are talking a fairly exciting, a fairly moist Las Vegas Grand Prix qualifying where there were shocks, surprises and epic laps. Also, we'll get into our driver ratings. Who failed it? Who nailed it? On the other side of this. So first of all, absolute congratulations to what actually nearly was an absolutely epic lap. In the middle sector, he was up by 9/10 of a second on second place, or on the leader at the time, who ended up being second place, obviously. And then he made a mistake, but he still managed to get pole by about 3/10. It could have been an even more epic lap, but Lando Norris secured pole position. How did that happen, though? Well, we'll get into it, because in FP3, there were P19 and P20. Disaster. One of the reasons was, I believe, they stayed on the intermediate tyres. I think they were one of the few people that didn't do a decent, a really proper soft run. And even the soft runners in FP3, it was still a fairly damp track. Sadly, we got no slick running. We went from wets, and then inters in the last session. Unless you speak to Lance Stroll, who went on inters in Q2, and I pretty much regretted it, sadly. But it was wet for qualifying. It was raining. I mean, look at that. Yeah. You needed wets. We don't often see that wet tyre. So fair play. The visibility, once again, in the wet, absolutely shocking for some. There were potential penalties, things that should have been a penalty. Hello, Isaac Hadjar. And Carlos Sainz may well be getting a penalty after his, well, let's be fair, very hard work to get up there in P3, the qualifying podium. And this was the qualifying result. In pole position, Lando Norris fastest by just over 3/10. Carlos Sainz within 4/10. Then George Russell struggling with his power steering, nearly 9/10 down. Over a second down was Oscar Piastri. He didn't really get a decent last lap in, sadly, because of yellow flags. Hello, Charles Leclerc. Liam Lawson ended up being 6th. Beating Isaac Hadjar. Fernando Alonso in a Racing Bulls sandwich. 9th, Charles Leclerc. 10th, Pierre Gasly. 11th, just outside of those top 10, Nico Hulkenberg. 12th, I feel a bit sorry for him for once, Lance Stroll. 13th, Esteban Ocon. 14th, Olli Bearman. 15th, Colapinto. 16th, Alexander Albon. Oh dear. 17th, Kimi Antonelli. 18th, Gabriel Bortoletto. 19th, oh dear, Yuki Tsunoda. The biggest oh dear, going to the man in red. The man that John Elkann pretty much said, shut up and drive. He's last. That's Lewis Hamilton. Shocker. Absolute shocker. So going into Q1, your people that were knocked out, as we know, is Albon, Antonelli, Bortoletto, Tsunoda and Hamilton. But it was George Russell that was fastest. He took the fastest, basically, time in both Q1 and Q2, which is fairly significant. Max Verstappen quite fast. Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll looking really good. They went out first and looking sublime, I must say. But yeah, not good at all. I mean, this was Alexander Albon, one of the big... Well, let's be fair. There's going to be two big losers of qualifying when we get into the driver ratings. This guy, Alexander Albon, is one of them, hitting the wall. The only one to hit the wall in a session that I thought was going to be red flag like it's going out of fashion. Luckily, it wasn't. We got a clean session with, yeah, I don't want to say minimal, but very yellow flags scuppering some people's times. But this guy, the only saving grace, I think, was he made it back to the pits. Somehow, Alex Albon is absolutely having a mare of a second half of the season, especially the last third or quarter, if you will, where he's being dominated now by Carlos Sainz. Gone is the superiority that we had in that first half of the season. Also, Olli Bearman, very, very lucky to get... He basically locked up and he went straight to the scene of the accident, the scene of the crime. Nothing he could have done after he locked up. Yeah. He ended up being 14th, but he got out of this and he went back to the pits. Not too much damage, so fair play. A bit of luck, maybe a teeny bit of skill for Olli Bearman. Well done to him, but the biggest knockout was this guy here, collecting a friend. Yeah, for some reason, if you look at the replay on Sky, when they did the Sky Pad, he decided to go over a cone, and it seemed like a choice rather than a must-have, like a lock-up. It was really weird. And then, but I'm suspecting this cone then, was it under his car for the beginning of the lap, which then really affected him. But the other issue is the communication between Ferrari and Lewis Hamilton was absolutely shocking. Because the communication was, Do I need to go again? They kind of said yes, but potentially too late. However, you got to lay most of the blame on Lewis Hamilton just not being fast enough. He cannot get those tyres warmed up, even though it appeared that he had more downforce than Charles Leclerc, the man that went off like it was going out of fashion. This was our Q2 standings. So knocked out in Q2 was Hülkenberg, Stroll, Ocon, Bearman and Franco Colapinto. George Russell, again fastest. This time in second was Isaac Hadjar and Carlos Sainz, giving us a preview on what was to come in third. But yeah, I'm shocked that the only reason Lance Stroll went out, I think, was because he opted to go on Inters. And to be fair, it looked like it was worth a shot until it looked like it wasn't. Hindsight, indeed, is a wonderful thing. But George Russell fastest. The only session he wasn't fastest, sadly, was the one that actually counted to the grid. This was Charles Leclerc. His car switched off in the middle of the lap. Yeah, sort it out. I don't know whether it was Charles Leclerc or the actual Ferrari car that ended up doing it, but if it was Charles Leclerc, talent to switch off a car halfway through a lap. The engine just turned off, and luckily these devices, these engines, you can turn them on again. Unlike pre-2014. This was then Q3, and this was Charles Leclerc going off again. He went off quite a few times. Maybe there's something wrong with the car. But I can't help but feel that Ferrari should have done better than it really did. It was a bit sad. This was the view, though, from the crowd. And you can see the rain coming down. I'm assuming this may have been Q1, because that's when the rain was heaviest. You can see the shine there. You definitely needed the wet tyres. And to give credit, Vegas Vice qualifying from row 1 of the sphere zone. Yeah, you're definitely going to need your rain anoraks on there. But not too bad of you. Are we going to get passing there? Who knows? I don't think so. But you never know. But you're right next to the sphere, which is absolutely uber cool. I'm really a model. I'm a bit jealous. A bit jealous if I'm honest. But this is it. This is Carlos Sainz. Needs to go to the stewards. Why? Well, the driver and team representative are required to go to the stewards. They would have been there by now, I think. The alleged breach of Article 33.3. 55 rejoining the track unsafely. He would join the track, I think, ahead of one of the racing bulls, who ended up having to basically change their line, save for a collision. Very silly of Carlos Sainz. Maybe it was dark. Maybe he couldn't see. Having said that, they have a radio. The team could have been onto him saying, wait wait for the car. Yeah, does he deserve a penalty? Sadly, I think he absolutely does. I don't think there's anything you can do. Also in Q3, Isaac Hadjar, basically Oscar Piastri lifted off for the yellows of Charles Leclerc, and then Isaac Hadjar decided not to lift off and then nearly crashed into Oscar Piastri. At that point, though, it just about gone green, but he didn't lift off. I can't believe it's not under investigation. Isaac Hadjar, you are a lucky man if you don't get a penalty, even though you had a solid qualifying. Naughty. So let's now get into our driver winners and losers, shall we, for the 2025 Las Vegas Grand Prix, as I'm just basically sorting them out as I speak. But once again, I absolutely can't believe Lewis Hamilton. I mean, this is the man that finished second. He finished second last year after starting 10th. Now, what would I do if I was Lewis Hamilton? Well, I definitely would be starting from the pit lane. Because when you think about it, how many of those cars are set up for a wet qualifying session? I can't really tell you. I'm not 100% sure. I can damn near suggest that some of them are. And I would just, if it is dry at before the race, I would lower that rear wing, go for absolute speed and passing, and see what happens. At this point, Lewis Hamilton's got absolutely nothing to lose. So let's get into our winners and losers. Who nailed it? Who failed it in F1 qualifying? And sadly, yeah, we have been talking about him. It's this guy here, Lewis Hamilton, just not fast enough. He couldn't heat the tyres up. Very similar to Brazil. And again, a qualifying disaster. And 2025, they seem to go hand in hand, sadly, at the moment. He does absolutely, in our opinion, still have the talent. Lack of communication, yes, in relation to why he didn't finish his last lap. He just got over the line by half a second. That was partly down to Lewis, partly down to his bad radio. But up until that point, he was last anyway. His laps were not good enough. Very unlucky, I think, under the yellows. But still, he still had a massive say in why he's so far back. And this guy here as well, the only man to crash. He crashed a lot like this time last year, didn't he, when he was under pressure by Colapinto. Now he seems to be under pressure by Carlos Sainz. And he crashed in Q1. Excuse me. Yeah, he's only got himself to blame. It really, really sucks. Poor old Alexander Albon. No, not really. The master of his own demise. It seems that Carlos Sainz has absolutely got into his head. So next up we have Yuki Tsunoda. Again, I think, what is he, starting 19th? Yeah, it's just not good enough, Yuki, is it, at this point? Having said that, the caveat being, yes, Max Verstappen, he has a car that's built for him. It might be hard for other people to drive, but still, are we seeing the last 3 Grand Prix weekends, last 3 Grand Prix races, excluding the sprint, of course, of Yuki Tsunoda's Formula 1 career? Now, Kimi Antonelli, another disappointment. To be fair, yeah, it is his first time at Las Vegas, but still, qualifying 17th when your teammate was fastest in that first qualifying session. Yeah, more practice maybe, but yeah, disappointing. I'm also going to put this guy here, disappointing as well. I think he was looking uber fast, wasn't he? He was looking really comfortable. And it was after his whoops-a-daisy into the barrier, the slight touch, and it just seemed to absolutely throw off the rest of Oliver Bearman's qualifying session. So Oliver Bearman's next in terms of the losers. The next one, he qualified 7th, but I'm putting him down as a loser simply because of the amount of mistakes he made. Charles Leclerc, yeah, he managed to somehow turn that car off, or the car turned off itself, but that was only as a result of once again outbraking himself. This guy went off, as I said, like it was going out of fashion. So Charles Leclerc is in our bottom 10 of losers. Oh dear, Charlie. I mean, this is meant to be the fastest guy in Formula 1 over 1 lap. Didn't look like it today, did he? Absolutely not. Next up, we've got Isaac Hadjar. Why? Well, he qualified in 8th, but I can't ignore the fact that, fair enough, the stewards aren't investigating it, but we are going to put you in that bottom 10, Isaac, simply because you are an absolute donut. You ignore yellow flags, you don't turn, you don't slow down, it's pretty much a blind corner. Then you're surprised when you come up against a slower car, lock up, nearly hit him. What an absolute mess. You are so lucky. Get yourself a lottery ticket for today if you don't get a penalty. You deserved one, in our opinion. Next up, Gabriel Bortoleto. Yeah. I just hope this doesn't run the disaster that ended up being the Brazil race. I just hope this is not starting a run of negative form. I'm sure it's not. Outqualified by your teammate. Again, like Kimi, there is that little, okay, it's your first time here, but we are at the top echelons in sport at the moment, aren't we? So the next up, Franco Colapinto. To be fair, he had, he qualified 15th. He did save the absolute best slide we've ever seen at Las Vegas in the way. It was amazing. Second, the only other one that was equally impressive was Lando Norris on his fastest lap. But yeah, Franco Colapinto 15th. Bearing in mind where Gasly is 10th, I think they'll be disappointed. And again, our disappointment, but not necessarily all because of him, is Lance Stroll. Now, if it was his decision to put the Inters on, fair play to him. In hindsight, he probably wouldn't have done that. But still, he tried something different. A lot of people are suggesting that car was quick enough on those wet tyres not to do that. But yeah, I think only a tiny bit negative. I'd like to say a little bit of a well done to Lance Stroll and a little bit of a well done to Esteban Ocon, because to finally, again, it hasn't really happened that much in the second half of the season, at least in the last few races, out-qualifying your teammate Olli Bearman. Well done. Also, in the top 10, I'd like to say a massive congratulations to Nico Hülkenberg. You didn't make it. You made it 11th. But one person who did make it 10th was this guy here, Pierre Gasly, in what is arguably one of the slowest cars on the track. The rain, it does open the skill level. You can make more of a difference in the car. You still need a good car, though. This guy doesn't have a good car, and he still qualified 10th. He beat half the grid. Absolutely well done. He didn't beat, though, Fernando Alonso, who is qualifying 7th. I think that's about the best he realistically could have done. The minute they went on the Inters, the faster the track got, I think the more difficulty maybe Alonso had. But yeah, not bad at all. Again, in the top 10, but he qualified for disappointing Oscar Piastri. However, with the caveat being that yellow flag really scuppered that second run, along with obviously Isaac Hadjar not helping as well. Your 5th, it may well be 4th for the race, depending on what happens to Carlos Sainz. So not the biggest issue. However, he's going to have a ping of sadness because at minimum, he'd want to be at least alongside, if not slightly ahead of Lando Norris, and that didn't happen. That was a mission failure for today. Liam Lawson qualifying 6th. Well done. Out-qualified Isaac Hadjar. Didn't do any amateur mistakes. Out of Isaac Hadjar. Nice. If he I can't help but feel, now, if he out-qualifies Isaac Hadjar in the next 3 races and beats him in the next 3 races, is he going to save his F1 career? Bearing in mind with Yuki Tsunoda potentially saying adios to at least the Red Bull team, if not Formula 1, that might be his saving grace. Carlos Sainz, I haven't put him 3rd, I put him 4th in total, simply because of the whoops-a-daisy he made and the fact that all that hard work by him, his engineers, setting the car up, has now been put at risk because of a silly mistake from Carlos, not really thinking straight, coming onto the track and, well, essentially blocking the racing boards. The biased person in me hopes he doesn't get a penalty, but when I put my head on, he deserves one, absolutely, sadly. So that's why this guy here, George Russell, is 3rd. Fastest in Q1, Q2, and then suddenly your power steering not working, and you still make it 4th. This guy is definitely the contender for one of the MVPs of the year. This is peak George Russell. He is driving superbly this year. Another guy who's been driving superbly this year, but not quite on that top spot, is Max Verstappen. Brilliant. It looked like a few times that his Red Bull was going to be struggling a bit, especially at the beginning of the session, but he nailed it. Well done, Max Verstappen. You qualified 2nd, but the man of qualifying, no choke noise put to bed at least for today. Tomorrow at the start with Max alongside, I don't know. But well done, Lando Norris. You did fantastic. I really would have loved to have seen the end of that lap had you not made that mistake. I think it would have been a second faster than everyone else. It would have been absolutely amazing. But there we go. That is our winners and losers for the Las Vegas Grand Prix qualifying. That is potentially not your grid, depending on Carlos Sainz, but I'm going to leave you with the view of Lando Norris on pole position. If you made it to the end and you are not, please consider giving us a subscribe. That'd be absolutely amazing. But until then, thank you very much for watching. Hit that notification button so you do not miss a video. You just making it to the end. We're not worthy. Thank you very much. Speak to you soon, but above all else, stay safe.